Now we are going to call upon another presenter, the fourth one, Ms. Ishanti Iresha Wijethunga, Department of Finance, Faculty of Management and Finance, University of Colombo. The topic is Investigation on Functions and Product Structure of Islamic Banking versus Conventional Banking in Sri Lanka, a case study.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today I am here to present my research paper on the topic based on investigation on functions and product structure of Islamic banks versus conventional bank, a case study. So this would be my outline of today's presentation. So as mentioned first, I'll have to first start the presentation by giving introduction to my topic. When you look at the Islamic banks, it's a unique concept that is originated mainly to satisfy the financial needs of the Muslim community who strictly adhere to follow Islamic law and rules. However, even though it's a unique concept and new concept that has emerged, still it is increasingly gaining attention around the global financial markets due to its unique features in contrast to conventional banks. So, however, as it's still a new concept, public lack the comprehensive knowledge how actually this new concept of Islamic banks differ from the conventional banks. So, as a result, this has created a need to study them in more detailed manner. So, if we move to research problem, so when we look at the studies that have been undertaken in this area, we can see that many researchers have identified that even though Islamic bank is a unique concept, still their functions are identical to the conventional banks. But however, they also further identified that even though they are identical, different characteristics have been identified in the framework of Islamic bank, because they emphasize that IB follows a unique framework. And in addition to that, there are many empirical studies that provide evidences that the product structure or both banks, conventional banks as well as Islamic banks, offer similar types of product. And again, they have also identified, though they offer similar types of product, still they are distinctive than the conventional bank's product because they should form these products using concept called Sharia principles. And in addition, the researchers have also identified that still customers lack the detailed knowledge of how actually Islamic banks differ from the conventional banks in terms of their practices, operations and concepts. So as a result, even though IB are gaining attention in the world global financial market, still there are only few studies have been carried out by comparing both conventional banks and Islamic banks, despite its in continuous growth in the world market. So still the individuals lack the fundamental understanding about these two concepts. So in order to fill this gap, I have undertaken this research, and another reason would be the Islamic bank entered Sri Lanka only in 2011, and still most of the Sri Lankan actually don't know that there is a bank called Islamic bank as well. So in order to fill this gap, I have undertaken this research. So consider about my objective of my study is to explore how and why Islamic banks differ from conventional banks by giving special reference to the functions and product structure from a fundamental perspective. So when we look at my research methodology, I have used exploratory study by conducting a multiple case study strategy on selected two banks, and I have collected data primarily by using in-depth focus interviews. And in addition, I have used internet and documentation sources such as annual reports, articles and brochures. So now let's move to the most important part, analysis and discussion of findings. Firstly, when you look at the functions of both these two banks, conventional banks and Islamic banks, we can see that both perform multiple functions. Mainly they perform three main functions which are identical to each other. But still, even though they perform these three main functions, as you can see they are similar functions, but still how the functions of IB1 differ from the CB1, because they need to follow mainly these principles: interest-free framework, Islam law and Sharia principles, while conventional banks follow interest-based framework. And in addition, all the functions of Islamic banks are governed by these given key principles of Islamic bank. So these major principles affect the full governance structure as well as functioning of the Islamic banks. And this actually argument is brought into light by the informant IB1. They emphasize that we are Sharia compliant bank, and even though we perform similar functions as conventional banks, still we are different because we need to follow the stipulated Sharia guidelines and principles than the other conventional banks. And mainly, while conventional banks functions with an aim to maximize their profit by transferring total risk to others, the Islamic banks mainly function to achieve social objectives such as economic justice, fairness and equality. So these findings are consistent with the findings of these researchers, but it contradicts the findings of Moore 2009, because he emphasized that both conventional banks and Islamic banks functions to maximize their profits. So by looking at all these analyses, we can see that Islamic banks function under the interest-free framework by mutually sharing risk with each other, as well as they follow Islam values and Sharia principles. So by considering all these facts, it means that they need to have a separate build-up internal banking environment to satisfy these principles. So for example, when you look at the Islamic banks, when they are performing banking transactions, they cannot use the general banking software that is applicable to conventional banks. They had to develop a new Islamic banking software in order to conduct and transact their operations. When we look at the product structure of Islamic bank and conventional banks, we can see that both CB1 and IB1 offer current accounts, savings accounts and investment accounts. But while conventional banks offer them on interest rates, Islamic banks offer them on PLS paradigm. It means profit and loss sharing framework, because they are operating within interest-free framework. So if I explain about some characteristic of their accounts, we know in current accounts, conventional banks also they are not offering interest, and in Islamic banks also they are not covered by PLS paradigm. It means they are not offering profit to the current account holders, but they guarantee the principal deposit amount to the current account holders.